Good evening, followers of fear. So, if you've been paying attention to my social media, eh, you might have heard that I've had a lot of good news lately on the writing front. A couple of short stories have been accepted for publication, an article, and oh yeah, I've got a new novel coming out. Woo! With that in mind, I thought I would do something uh, to help get people interested. And what am I doing? Well, I've got some excerpts here from two of those upcoming stories that I thought I would read to you. So the first story will be from Cressida, which is published now in Into the Deep from Jazz House Publications. It's an anthology of deep sea horror. The ebook is available now, and the uh, paperback will hopefully be available in the next few days. Amazon's funky that way sometimes. So without further ado, here is a short sample from my story, Cressida. Mark pulled up to the beach house, his uncle's car in the driveway. He turned off the engine of his own vehicle, but he did not get out. Instead, he stayed in his seat and took in the old house, noting how it looked slightly run down. Mark wondered about this. Considering his uncle had decided to keep the place rather than sell it, and then retired to this house once Aunt Delilah died, passed. One would think he would maintain it better. I know it seems silly, he had confided in Mark after he had moved in, but I feel closer to Cressida here. After all, she's not buried in that cemetery where her headstone is. That's an empty grave. If I'm going to live anywhere, it's going to be where I at least feel her spirit. Her spirit. Perhaps that had something to do with the state of the house. Cressida didn't leave behind a suicide note, so why she drowned herself was still a mystery. However, if it had something to do with the house or something that happened there, perhaps Cressida's ghost was haunting the place, and her father by extension. It would go a long way to explain that weird phone call. Mark shivered. Such morbid thoughts were unusual for him. Besides, he didn't believe in ghosts. I'm sure there's a logical explanation for all this, he thought, stepping out of the car and grabbing his suitcase from the trunk. I just need to get inside and figure out what that is. Taking out his key, Jacob had given him one with the reminder that Mark was always welcome at the beach house. Mark unlocked the front door and stepped inside. He glanced around the living room, kitchen, dinette, and dining room, and noticed nothing out of sorts. Unlike the outside, the rooms were well maintained, though Mark thought the furniture and photos on the walls the same ones that had been here when he was 10. Also, there was no sign of his uncle. Mark called out for him, but he received no response. Placing his suitcase on the floor, he first checked the sliding doors in the back. As far as he could tell, his uncle wasn't out enjoying the beach. There was a long wooden dock out there that hadn't been there the last time Mark had been down, as well as a small sporty yacht that was tied to a mooring. Those were new additions Jacob had forgotten to mention. Mark would have to bring that up. Of course, he would have to find his uncle first. Deciding to leave searching the yacht for last, Mark turned back and headed to the second floor. The master bedroom and attached bathroom was empty, as was the guest bathroom. The guest room Mark's parents used to sleep in, the guest room he used to sleep in, and Cressida's room. He didn't stay long in this last room. It had been perfectly preserved as it had been on the day Cressida had walked into the ocean, and just breathing the air within made Mark uncomfortable. He made his way downstairs again. On the second to last step, the wood underneath the carpet creaked. A figure stepped from around the corner, brandishing a large blunt weapon. "What the hell are you doing in here?" he roared. Mark threw his arms up defensively. "Uncle Jacob, chill! It's me, Mark!" Jacob Olshaker He lowered the rolling pin he'd been holding as a weapon and stared at Mark as if he were seeing him for the first time. Mark, is that you? Do I look like Eleanor Roosevelt? The words were out before Mark could even think of what he was saying. The two men, who hadn't been face to face with each other without a computer or phone screen between them in years, stared at each other for a moment before they burst out laughing and hugged each other. Oh, it's good to see you, boy. Jacob led Mark into the kitchen and replaced the rolling pin in a cabinet. I forgot you were coming and was down in the basement when you arrived. When I heard someone walking about above me, I got concerned. Mark had forgotten about the basement, which he'd barely been in when he was younger. As far as he could remember, it had been spacious, but only contained a washer and dryer. Jacob had talked of turning into a rec room when Cressida was alive, but that talk had never turned into action. Anyway, Jacob continued, I'm glad you came like you said. I missed you, buddy. I'm sure Cressida will be delighted to see you, too. Yeah, Mark replied. Well, Jacob, about that. When you said Cressida wanted to see me... It's better if I show you, Jacob interrupted, heading to the basement door. You'll soon see. Mark followed, confused and a little bit afraid. He didn't see any sign of madness or senility in his uncle, but you never could tell. Plenty of people went mad without showing it to their friends or family. Uncle, you do remember that Cressida died. She drowned. What he didn't say was, she committed suicide. And I know she committed suicide because she walked into the ocean and then opened her mouth to drown herself. I watched her do it. Plus she was wearing a nice dress, which is something suicides do. They dress their best when they take their own lives. She didn't die. Jacob opened the door to the basement and walked down the stairs. A salty smell floated up towards them, filling their nostrils. Mark followed, wary but curious. She just went into the water. After all, they never found her body. Well, they never found her body, but the Coast Guard said that was because the currents... She didn't die! Jacob spun around and glared at his nephew. Cressida is alive. She just went into the water and left for a while. But she's here now. She has come home. Come home? Mark repeated, perturbed. He was starting to wonder if his uncle was keeping some girl trapped down here. If he was, how should Mark, as his nephew, react? Yes, come home, and with a bit of time she'll remember how good she had it here. Look and see. They had reached the bottom of the stairs. Jacob gestured for Mark to look. He looked. His eyes widened and his mouth gaped. On the one hand, it wasn't a girl chained to the wall, or a bunch of creepy mannequins, or something else out of a horror novel. On the other hand, Mark had no idea what to make of it. The entire basement had been taken up by what appeared to be a huge aquarium tank. It was rectangular in shape, the sides made with thick glass and the top covered with metal plating. A ladder beside one corner led to a hatch on top, while some sort of motorized machine with pipes feeding into the tank growled quietly on the aquarium wall opposite the ladder. Inside the tank, a thick layer of blue gravel covered the floor, with fake rocks and reefs rising out of the floor like a child's fish tank. An artificial cave with a large overhang took up an entire corner of the tank, its shadow obscuring whatever was inside. There was movement in that cave, and Mark zeroed in as something emerged from it. As his eyes focused on what had swum out of the cave, he thought his mind would break right in that moment. Behind him, Jacob laughed and said, Yeah, that's what you think it is, or I guess I should say, who you think it is. The bottom half was long, sleek, and dark red, with a horizontal flipper in the end of the tail and fins on the side and back. The top, except for gills on either side of the torso, was humanoid, feminine, and it looked a lot like Cressida, he whispered, stepping past his uncle into the glass tank. And that is an excerpt from Cressida, my mermaid horror story, which has just been published in Into the Deep, an anthology from Jazz House Publications. It's currently only available in ebook form, but the paperback shouldn't be far behind. My next reading will come from Blood and Paper Skin, This story is being serialized over 3 issues in The Dark Sire, or a magazine of horror and psychological fiction. In the first issue, containing the story, issue 8, will be out on July 31st. So this is from Blood and Paper Skin. Gray held onto the side of Mark's Chevy Tahoe for dear life, cursing his supposed best friend for making him endure the chilly winds whipping around the car. How the hell did I end up in this situation, he wondered for the millionth time. But he already knew the answer to that. Mark had called him up about the opportunity to get some good shrooms and hook up with some hot girls. Gray, who never passed up an opportunity to hook up or get high, had said yes immediately and waited outside his apartment building for Mark to arrive as evening fell. He had thought that Mark would pick him up, they'd go buy the shrooms, and then they'd either pick up these rumored hot girls or drive straight to his house and meet them. A reasonable expectation, in Gray's opinion. But, as usual, Mark had forgotten to give Gray a few details when he had invited the latter out. Specifically, he had forgotten to mention that he would be picking up the girls, 5 in total, and 3 other guys before grabbing Gray. Then they would get to the shrooms, then some drinks, and then they would head to Mark's place to party. Imagine Gray's surprise when the old Tahoe had pulled up and he discovered a pretty college girl in the passenger seat, 3 more girls in the second row, and 1 more sitting in the trunk with Pull and Rock, 2 friends of Mark's whom Gray disliked. Not only that, but Aaron Dunbar, who Mark and Gray had hung around with in high school, was hugging the Tahoe's passenger side and holding onto the crossbars and running boards with his hands and feet for dear life. That moment, Gray figured out how he was expected to ride and regretted agreeing to go out with the guy. This is so typical of Mark, he thought, as his friend made a harsh turn onto Cherry Street. He tightened his grip on the crossbar and frowned at Aaron, whose face mirrored Gray's anger and annoyance. He gets an idea, but never thinks through how he's going to accomplish it or how many problems he'll cause others, especially when a bit of fun's involved. Even as he cursed Mark, however, he knew he and Aaron weren't blameless. They had, after all, both forgotten to press Mark for details, even though he was notorious for never figuring things out until the last minute. Even after that, they were still hanging onto the sides of his car out of their own desires for a little fun. Booze, shrooms, and pretty ladies from the local community college. What more could you ask for? Still, Gray wished he was inside the car, impressing everyone with his knowledge of every song on Mark's Spotify playlist and chatting up the girls in the car. He was especially interested in the one girl who had introduced herself as Princess and wore a frilly white dress with a short skirt and puffy sleeves. Sweet Lolita style, she called it. Whatever it wasn't something Gray saw in most girls he ran into. He found it kind of exciting. He wanted to slowly take it off her, piece by piece, and see what she was like underneath. After what felt like an unbearable wait, the Tahoe crossed Broad, Price, and Cunningham Streets and turned into the back lot of a Walgreens that had been closed since Gray was in elementary school. The moment the engine shut off, Gray and Aaron jumped off the car and started clenching and unclenching their fingers to get the circulation going again. Meanwhile, the car doors and trunk popped open and 8 men and women jumped out to stretch their limbs and look around. "So where's the guy?" asked Lita, a tall girl with a short brown hair who, judging by the way she clung to Mark's arm, had already decided whom she would be hooking up with tonight. Mark glanced around, his mustache twitching with excitement. "Should be here any moment now," he said. "He'll be in a blue van." "That's not creepy at all," the girl called Annie commented. "Totally not the sort of vehicle a serial killer or a pedo might drive around in." "I'm more worried that he's a cop," a girl named Nikki piped up. "I still live with my mom. You know what she'll do to me if I get arrested in a sting?" "Hey Mark, Carter girl with the caution-inducing nickname of Knives. You sure this guy isn't a cop? A look of fear passed over Mark's face as he realized this was another thing he failed to consider. I don't think he is. Gray looked around. They were totally alone, and the Tahoe was the only vehicle in the lot. Didn't seem like there were any good places for a bunch of cops conducting a sting to hide and gather evidence from. If he had to guess, they were safe. Still, he wondered if he could use their worries about cops to his advantage and maybe cozy up to Princess. He looked for her and saw her deep in conversation with Poole, her eyes appraising his muscular arms. Annoyance sprung up within Gray's chest. He would have to think of a way to get Princess's attention off the prick that didn't leave Gray either pummeled into the ground or extremely embarrassed. Before he could think of something, however, another car pulled into the back lot. It's bright, it's blinding them. Gray pressed his hand to his eyes and used the gaps between his fingers to gaze out. Sure enough, it was a van, and it might have been blue when it had come off the factory line. As the others concluded this was Mark's supplier, they gathered together on one side. The van pulled up alongside them, and the supplier turned off the lights and engine. Mark stepped forward. Hey, you Barry? Between how dark it was now without the van's headlights and the red splotches that had imprinted themselves on his retina after they went out, Gray couldn't see shit. He blinked several times, hoping his eyes would adjust. And as the van's door slid open, they did. So he was surprised when a man wearing a gas mask stepped out and threw something that looked like a grenade at their feet. Fuck! He shouted. Everybody, run! But before Gray could finish, there was a hissing sound, and he smelled something like cleaning solutions. A second later, he felt dizzy, his vision swam, and he fell to the ground. Fuck, he whispered. And then he was out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was an excerpt from Blood and Paper Skin, which will be appearing, the first part of which will be appearing in the Darksire issue 8, which will be out on July 31st, a week from Saturday. Of course, if you're watching this video well into the future, then in a week from Saturday was a long time ago. Anyway, I just wanted to read from those stories. They're coming out very soon, and maybe get you a bit excited to read them. I mean, Cressida's already out. It's, as I said, Cressida is in the anthology Into the Deep from Jazz House Publications. It's available now on Amazon, and the paperback version should be available any day now. Heck, it could be even available as I'm recording this, and I wouldn't know because I haven't checked Amazon in an hour or two. Well, and as I said, Blood and Paper Skin will be in the Darksire, issues 8, 9, and 10, with issue 8 coming out this, the end of the month, July 31st, so please check it out. Also, August 1st, in the August issue of House of Stitched magazine, I will be having an article in that magazine. So, please check that out. I mean, there are a bunch of great stories and stuff in that magazine as well, but also make sure to read my article. Read everything, but also read the article. And this holiday season, the Jewish Book of Horror, I've got a short story in that one, called The Divorce from God, so that'll be out around Hanukkah. And finally, as you well know by now, my novel, The Pure World Comes, will be out hopefully in the near future. I've been emailing with Vitaltech, the owners and operators of the Redict novel app, pretty frequently, and we're just getting things ready. It's with their editors, so I should be hearing from them soon, and eventually we will have that story out, I should hope. So that's my good news. Also, actually, there are a couple other of pieces of good news. I've got events news. Woo! Now, first off, um, I will be in Dover, Ohio, not Delaware, Dover, Ohio, on July 31st at Bibliophile Books. The Dark Sire is hosting a release party there or for its authors where they can do short readings from their works, answer questions, and maybe sell some books. Copies of the Dark Sire issue 8 will also be available, so definitely come and check that out if you're in the area. Support your local authors. Woohoo! And in September, I will be going to Aurora, Illinois for her Indie Author Book Expo Aurora. That'll be September 11th at the community center. I forget what the actual name of the community center is. It's got a specific name, but it'll be there, and so will food trucks, but also a lot of great authors with a variety of different books in Aurora, Illinois. So definitely come check that out. And one last thing before I let you all go. Oh, I know, but just wait a moment. So, I don't know if you know, but next month, August, I will be celebrating my 10-year blogging anniversary on my blog. Yeah, 10 years. I'm surprised as well. That is a crazy amount of time to blog. Anyway, I'll be doing an AMA, an Ask Me Anything, uh, to celebrate. It's not going to be on YouTube, though. It's going to be on my blog, obviously. But if you want to participate, you can just send me an email with your question by 11:59 on July 28th. And not only will your question be answered, but you'll be eligible to win a very special prize. So, yeah. Please send me an email. My email is ramiunger@ramiungerthewriter.com. I'll post that information, all the description below, and a pinned comment. So I hope you'll participate. So thank you again, followers of Fear, for watching to the end of this video and listening to my stories and my good news. I hope you'll check out Cressida and Into the Deep, paperback or ebook. Though for the paperback, you're going to have to check back on Amazon until that's actually there. I hope you'll purchase a copy of issue 8 of The Dark Sire, or when that comes out, July 31st. I hope you'll check out House of Stitch magazine next month. I hope you'll check out the Jewish Book of Horror in winter, this holiday season. And I hope that when it's released, you check out The Pure World Comes on Read It. Thank you, all of my followers of Fear. I'll hopefully see maybe one or two of you in Dover, who knows? And I look forward to receiving your emails. So until next time, my followers of Fear, good night and pleasant nightmares.